Hello, BookTube. I'm continuing the visual record that I'm making here of my library, my little book room here in 2025. And we are on the next tall bookcase here. So we have no transwise books at all in this entire bookcase. These shelves are perfectly made for the size of an individual book. Varies up some. So there's no double stacking or cramming or anything here. Maybe that will make the videos go shorter. You never know. So we have a Pimlico trade paperback to start things off. I love Pimlico trade paperbacks. If I lived in the UK, I would go to your Oxfam shops all the time to look for these things. This is the Weekend Wodehouse. There's a lot of PG Wodehouse in this room, and as you've already been able to see from just this tour, it's not all together. Perhaps by the end of this tour, there'll be PG Woodehouses in the Black Spine Penguin Classic line, in which case there'll be even more places. This is an anthology. This is what the Pimlico paperbacks look like. And this is an anthology of all of Wodehouse, not just Jeeves and Worcester, balanced for reading pleasure. The Weekend Wodehouse is meant, those of you who have not read any Wodehouse, the Weekend Wodehouse is meant to signify what readers of Wodehouse know, which is that he is a getaway. He's the ultimate getaway. You don't have to read it on a weekend. Then we have an author that we've seen before on this channel. This is his masterpiece. This is Bernd Heinrich. This is his book, Ravens in Winter. Terrific work of just inquisitive nonfiction about how these super intelligent birds live. Not actually just in winter, but there's an emphasis on that. That interests Heinrich, who also did a whole book on how all animals, not just ravens, manage in winter. And for those of you watching from 2030, winter, if you Google it, was the word that we used for a cold season. Not cold in your sense of the word, which is daily temperatures going below 25 degrees Celsius. We considered that hot. Winter was a time when the tilt of the planet and the conditions of the climate led to consistent day-to-day sub-freezing weather, leading to rain, which you're also going to have to Google, particulating as snow, particulating as a crystalline form. You can Google all of that. In 2030, you can Google all of that. Right now, we still have something called winter. And when Heinrich wrote this book in the 20th century, winters were a quarter of the year, maybe longer in some places. And Heinrich has always been interested in how animals, especially high metabolism animals like birds, actually get through such a time if they don't migrate. I just love the book. I just love it. It came out in... It came out while I was working in a retail bookstore. I feel sure of that. Oh, no, it didn't. 1989. But I always used to make sure that we had copies in the store so that I could sell it. The customers came in looking for, I want really intelligent natural history that isn't all fuzzy and kumbaya. I could sell this book to them. Then we have a classic of nature writing. This is Aldo Leopold, Sand County Almanac. Also illustrated. I should be showing you the illustrations. I should be showing myself the illustrations. Another classic of natural history. I think that Ravens in Winter deserves to be on that small shelf of maybe 15 books, but this is on that shelf. It's not that it's an opinion call on my part. This is, anybody would consider this a classic. We've got a lot of nature here, it looks like. The next one is New England Nature Watch by Tom Long, which is also heavily illustrated. He had a feature that he wrote for the Boston Globe where he would take a particular week on the calendar, and say what was happening in that week. What forest flowers are blossoming. What hibernating animals are waking up. What migrating animals are returning. Again, for those of you watching in 2030, all of this will be weird. All of this will be science fiction. None of this is true now. Much less true then. When right now we have a very brief 3 or 4 day interval that used to be a quarter of the calendar and was called springtime. Most areas of the world have no winter anymore at all, and most of the ice caps of this planet have melted. By the time you watch this in 2030, those ice caps will long be gone. there will be no polar ice caps on this planet for the first time in a long, long time. By the time you in 2030 find a copy of this book, you won't be able to find a copy of this book in America. But outside of America, if you find a copy of this book, you'll read through it and think, well, this guy's going through season by season, but he doesn't have desolation season. He doesn't have fire season. That's because at the time, right now, when I'm making this video 5 years ago, we had not yet designated fire season as a season in the calendar and gotten rid of autumn, for instance, which doesn't happen at all, or winter, which is going to be gone soon. We hadn't yet done that. We're still clinging to the old calendar. So this is mainly for you going to be a keepsake of what nature used to be like. And it's a lovely thing. If you're getting it now, it's a lovely thing. You just go through the calendar day by day. I used to clip these columns when they were in the newspaper. So I was very happy when there was a book. Okay, then we have, this is Vita Sackville West. This is her book, Noel and the Sackvilles. This is her biography of that gigantic pile on the cover. This is a very battered hardcover. But that gigantic pile on the cover is her family seat. Basically a city on its own. And in this book, she traces its history through all the Sackville family, through all of the different personalities, while also adoring the home. And this Noel and the Sackvilles has had many, many editions over the years. And part of this is born out of bitterness, because if Vita Sackville West had been born a boy instead of a girl, all of that would have been hers. I would not have been able to live with that kind of bitterness. It's made at least one great book. I'm not sure that I'm of the opinion that some people had maybe 50 years ago, that if you're looking for great books, you have a number to choose from this author. I don't really think that's true. In fact, I think this is the only truly great book that she wrote. But I love it. Go back to it all the time. Okay, we have another classic I go back to all the time. I went back to this a little bit more a few years ago. This is Catherine White. And this is her book, Onward and Upwards in the Garden. And this is gardening essays, raised to the pitch of high art. There are innumerable books on gardening essays in the UK and in the US, innumerable. And this is one of the best of them all. And I know that because a few years ago, I toyed with the idea of taking up gardening. And when I toyed with that idea, I approached it in the way that you will find completely unsurprising, which is that I read a huge amount about it. I read a huge amount of gardening books. And the flirtation with gardening never happened. It turned out it involved too much stooping. And also, it involved way too much voluntary time away from my little dog. With her knowing that I'm right there, being able to see me, but not being able to approach me. So I abandoned that idea, but it did have a positive effect. It gave me a much deeper and broader introduction to gardening literature, which I love now. But this is still the original and the best. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, right. Okay. This is actually a BookTube book. Made it into this room. Not a BookTube book in that I read it before there was a BookTube, but a BookTube book in that BookTube convinced me to give this another try. The author is W.G. Sebald, and this is his book on the natural history of destruction, which is, in really battered shape. But I could have picked anywhere. I could have gone anywhere for this author. I chose this book to grapple with his odd narrative decisions, his weird admixture of fiction and nonfiction, or you could go further and say his weird pre-writing authorial stance that there isn't a difference between those two things. I think that he has much to answer for. I think there's a great deal of really crappy literary slop in the world today, largely because of this guy and those decisions, which are nonsense. But I grabbed this book and a couple of others of his because a number of booktubers I respected like this guy. And sure enough, one of many, many instances in which BookTube changed my reading, I did find a lot more than I had the first time around when I read any of his books. I think of the 3 or 4 that I got from the shop, I only kept this one. I really liked this one. I didn't end up actually liking any of the others. I thought there was more to them than I originally thought. All right. Then we have something for the gays. You got to have something for the gays. This is a classic from the old Plume line with the faded photographs on the cover, the artificially faded photographs. This was a whole line that I read everything in it. This is Andrew Holleran's Dancer from the Dance. See, that's the design there. They did also the anthology series Men on Men. That for its first few volumes was magnificent. This is a classic gay novel about a vanished New York. This is, in fact, a great Homeric hymn to the last days of that vanished New York. There's a specter hanging over this whole book, unknown to its author, unknown to its readers at the time, but unavoidable to readers now. I need to reread this book. I haven't reread it in quite some time. I really like it. It's excessive and pandering and posturing, but still, I really like it. All right. Then we have The Forsaken Boy by erstwhile booktuber Troy Tradup. This is his werewolf novel, and it's terrific. It is, in my opinion, the greatest werewolf novel ever written, and I've read them all. so that's not small things. I love it. You will love it too. Go onto Amazon and buy a copy of The Forsaken Boy if you read werewolf fiction. All right. Then we have two books. These were sent to me out of the blue. These were sent to me by the publisher, Down East Books. It was just a coincidence. That's all. I'm on their mailing list sometimes. So this is John Gould. This is this trifling distinction, and this is this. You should start sooner. And these are collections of columns that he wrote for the Christian Science Monitor. And the irony is that I was writing regularly for the Christian Science Monitor every week when I got these. And they're delightful. I would never have thought that anyone would collect these things. They did fairly well. You Should Start Sooner did fairly well when they came out originally. John Gould had a much bigger hit than either of these. These columns, how many people out there in the 20th century clipped his columns and just kept them in a folder in what we used to call a filing cabinet? How many people did that? And here they are in these books. Fantastic. Just fantastic. All right. Then we have bless Levi's heart. We have the University of Chicago brought out The Last Hurrah by Edwin O'Connor in this lovely trade paperback, really solidly made trade paperback. This is, Edwin O'Connor was a working man of letters, and this is his masterpiece. This is one of the two great political novels in American history. There's one in a largely tragic vein, All the King's Men by Robert Penn Warren, and then there's one in a larger comic vein, The Last Hurrah. And there is a bitter kind of almost involuntary comedy running throughout All the King's Men. There's an absurdist note that Robert Penn Warren can't help but hit from time to time. And there's an element of tragedy running through The Last Hurrah. Definitely. It's a very Irish tragedy. It's also very Irish comedy, but it's a very, very good book about a thoroughly corrupt and yet noble old city politician's last run for office. He knows that the political climate is changing. He knows that his old way of ward politics is not going to last. He knows the future is simply impersonal and is simply going to erase it. But he's thinking he might eke out one last victory before it happens. And it's wonderful. It's a wonderful novel. And also there are scenes in it, individual set pieces in it, that are incredible, just incredible. A couple that are moving, very moving. The main character, Frank Skeffington, has a scene with a widow at her kitchen table, where you get to see the human side of corrupt Irish ward politics. You get to see the non-Tammany side of it. You get to see what it could do, and often did do. The character in this book is based on a real-life Boston politician who was as corrupt as the day is long, and yet he built schools. But anyway, there are also a couple of other... That's a sad scene, a melancholy scene. But there are also comic scenes that are just incredible. You'll remember them forever. Then we have a work of natural history, more natural history. This is Margaret Stanger. This is her book, That Quail Robert. This is her memoir of finding and raising and living with a quail here in New England, here in Massachusetts. And it came out 80 years ago, 90 years ago, and became an immediate hit. Everyone loved it. There was a sequel, and everyone not only talked about it and had book clubs about it, and everybody came into the store. I'm looking for that bird book. If a customer came into the store and said, I'm looking for that bird book, this was the book. They might not know the name of the book or the name of the author, but you had better find them the book or you'll lose that sale. To the bookstore down the street where the clerk does know what they're talking about. Those of you who know anything about retail bookselling today, especially if you're in retail bookselling today, will be utterly baffled by what I'm saying right now. But once upon a time, the staff had to know books really well. They had to care about them. They couldn't hate them. They couldn't even be indifferent to them. They had to love them and know them. Whereas staff in retail bookstores now actually hates books. It's incredibly patriarchal to read. Unfortunately, when this book originally appeared, it sparked a mini fad of people trying to raise quails on their own. That is not a good idea, but this is so charming. The charm lives. Even all this time later, the charm lives. Okay, we have another classic of natural history. I guess that's going to be the theme for this shelf. I didn't think there were many theme shelves here. This is Sally Carrighar, who is fantastic. And if I could find hardcovers with dust jackets of all of her books, I would. They all came out that way. Instead, she is one of those authors that I love. She's a natural history writer, and I love her, but I have a weird hodgepodge of her books. Like, for instance, this is a trade paperback, but it's the only trade paperback of hers that I've ever seen. This is One Day on Beetle Rock, which I also have as a mass market paperback, but not as a hardcover, the way I would like it. And these are full of very neat little illustrations there. This is... hang on a second here. This is the frontispiece there, and this is illustrated by Henry Bugby Keene, who is my favorite book illustrator. And I have this thing, but if you want to find the rest of Sally Carrighar, you're going to be looking all over the place here. I really wish, sooner or later it will happen, the Brattle will provide, but I really wish I could find all of her books in hardcovers with dust jackets. That would be awesome. Those would all come straight in this room. This next thing is really skinny. Okay. This is Equus by Peter Shaffer, the author of Amadeus. So he wrote this play about a boy who is erotically in love with horses. He worships them. And he is committed to a psychiatric institution because at one point in the middle of the night, he blinds a stable full of horses as part of his religious life. So he is committed to an insane asylum where he's treated by a doctor. And the more the doctor learns about his weird passion, the more the doctor wonders about his absence of passion, his lack of it. And this was a hit, and people lined up to see it. No one at the time thought that Peter Shaffer would have an even bigger hit. Amadeus was an even bigger hit. This is still performed. Always for the wrong reasons. The last time this had a major revival was about 15 years ago, and this is always for the wrong reasons. One of the ways that the doctor in the psychiatric institution calms the boy is by giving him cigarettes. That's one of the ways that he uses to do it. And the Daniel Radcliffe, who played Harry Potter in the Harry Potter movies, opted for the Broadway run of this solely for that reason. Not the material, just that reason, so that he could smoke 2 times every night on camera, on stage, and 3 times on the weekends, in addition to literally every minute of the rest of his life. The wrap party for this, the cast party at the end of this, the show wrapped on an extremely cold, blustery, bitter day in New York, and the wrap party was still held outside in tents because the star wanted to smoke nonstop. And he's the star, so he runs everything. So you couldn't enjoy your after party your wrap party like normal people. Instead, you were freezing your asses off because this 4-foot-tall tobacco addict wanted to indulge his addiction all the time. I have no doubt whatsoever that the next time this is staged on Broadway, it will be at the impetus of another 6-pack-a-day tobacco addict, probably Jacob Elordi will want to play Alan Strang in this. And it's annoying, but the play is great. The play is great. Some of you who are maybe involved in psychiatry will think that it's hooey, and maybe it is. But plays don't stop being great just because they're hooey. Oh no. Okay, I swear that wasn't a lead-in. Speak of the devil, though. Plays don't Plays don't stop being great just because they're hooey. Okay, this is Henry VIII by William Shakespeare. This is, again, I found this Arden Shakespeare. The Arden Shakespeares are incredibly well annotated, so if you find a paperback, especially of their Hamlet, they're well worth it to get. I grabbed this just because it was $1. I have no idea why Hyacinth Bouquet is on the cover instead of either an actor who played Henry or Henry himself. I have no idea. Maybe that is meant to be Thomas Cromwell. That'd be an odd choice to put on the cover of a play called Henry VIII. But this is William Shakespeare writing about the father of his monarch. So it's tricky. There have to be villains, but the villain can't be Anne Boleyn. Right. It can't be Anne Boleyn. So the villain here is Wolsey, Cardinal Wolsey, who gets some wonderful speeches. Some of the speeches in here, actors in decades past, in centuries past, some great high-powered actors would take a role in this play, even though Wolsey is not the lead. They would take on this play anyway and even tour with it just for the chance of getting Wolsey's speeches. And I love Henry VIII. I just love it as a play. I don't know why I should. It's not a very good play, but I do anyway. Okay, another classic of nature writing and natural history. This is Conrad Lawrence. This is King Solomon's Ring, which is also illustrated. All these things have illustrations. These are from his great piece on dogs. The dogs run all through this book, but there's one core essay here on dogs. And this is all about nature, all sorts of wonderful. This and Sand County Almanac would be on that 15-book list. I guess I must have maybe at one point had the idea of organizing. Crazy as that is. All right, then this next one is by Richardson Wright. This is an outgrowth of Catherine White, Onward and Up in the Garden. This is the Gardener's Bed book, and it's an anthology of gardening writing. So in bite-sized pieces that you can use as bedside reading. I read this from front to back in one gulp, and I need to read it again. I really developed, during my flirtation with gardening, I really developed a sweet tooth for gardening literature. So I need to do that again. And then the final book here. Oh, right. Okay, this was never for sale. This is by Ned Smith, who for years and years wrote a nature column, for Game News, a hunting magazine. And yet his nature columns were often wonderful. They often did not revolve around the point of murdering people who've never done you any harm, and they often did not climax with that either. It's a beautiful autumn day, and the clouds are scudding in the sky, and I don't have a thing to do, so I'm going to shoulder my gun and go out to kill things. Way too much hunting literature has rhapsodic descriptions of the natural world, but it ends with that sentence. Who wants to read it if it ends with that sentence? Damn you to hell if it ends with that sentence. So I don't have any hunting literature, and this turns out not to be hunting literature. This is a collection of his columns called Gone for the Day, just issued to subscribers of Game News, and full of illustrations. Just full. That's a full-page one, but the pages themselves have illustrations, tracks and sightings and whatnot. Just a collection of his columns. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. So that is this shelf, and it was almost all nature. That's weird. So I'll wrap this up, and we'll see what the theme is next time. Thank you, BookTube.